G'day there guys, do you hate Karens? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled parents. Now if you love today's content, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the Barbie, and smash that like button and enjoy today's bloody good content. Not too much to ask, right? Thank you. Posted by user SweetPoison02. Titled, Former friend's little sister ruins a book I loaned her, asks me if I'll be buying her a new one so she can finish it. So I was sorting through my boxes of books and realized I was missing a book and remembered this story from back in the day. Thought I'd share it with you all for a laugh. So as a teenager, back many years ago, my favorite book was Interview with a Vampire by Anna Rice. What can I say? I was very much into the emo vampires back then. My then best friend asked to borrow it as she was curious with how often I spoke about it. Now, normally I didn't like loaning out books, as I'm very particular about them and didn't like to risk them being damaged. But as I said, this was my best friend, so I agreed and brought the book into school the next day to loan to her. A few weeks go by, and I ask her how she's getting on with the book, what she thinks, etc. She tells me she'd gotten about halfway through, but her little sister had gotten her hands on it and drawn all over the pages, so she threw it out. She then asked me when I'd buy another copy, and if she could finish it when I did. I told her she should be buying me a new copy, and she said it wasn't her fault her sister had ruined it, and she wasn't going to pay for it. Our next post is by user Vardrak, titled, My sister calls me rude and disrespectful for sleeping. A little bit of backstory. I joined the military back in 2014. Since then, it has been very difficult for me to go home. Up until this past Thanksgiving, I hadn't been home since 2016. Now to the story. The cast are me, mum, dad, entitled sister, and nice kids. I had just gotten home from a 10-hour flight. For reasons I will not go into, I had not slept for 2 days prior, and I had let my family know this before I even landed. They were all understanding. Great, I thought. My mum picked me up at the airport. We grabbed food and went home. I decided to try and stay awake with my mum until she had to go to work. This was futile, as my lack of sleep was rapidly catching up on me. My mum informed me that my sister would be over after she left. I nodded and told her I was going to bed. My mum called my sister and told her that I would be sleeping by the time she got there. I heard my mother tell her to use the back door. Fast forward about an hour and a half, my mum had left to work and I'm fast asleep. I was starting to feel feverish because of how little sleep I had, and it was hard to fall asleep. I was awoken suddenly by loud banging at the door. I assumed this was my sister. I remembered what my mum said and tried to go back to sleep. She walks to the bedroom window and begins to bang on this as well. Very annoyed, I get up and unlock the front door and open it. I then immediately go back to bed without saying anything because I literally can barely see straight, let alone stand. About 5 minutes pass and entitled sister enters the room and says, "Why didn't you wait by the door for us?" "Because I'm tired, entitled sister, and it's making me sick. And I came over here to see you, and brought my fiancé and stepkids too." "Well, that's good. If you hang around a while, I'll be up in a few hours and we can hang out then." Entitled sister didn't hear me apparently because I turn over to look and there are the nice kids. I say, "Oh, hello, I'm me." And they say, "Hello, we are insert names here." I managed to smile at them while entitled sister huffed angrily and walked out of the bedroom with the kids. I assumed she got the picture, so I rolled over and fell asleep immediately. About 10 minutes later, I'm woken up again, suddenly, from entitled sister yelling at me. "Do you know how rude and disrespectful you were being?" "What? What are you talking about? I brought everyone over to meet you, and you think it's more important to sleep? I told you I haven't slept. I don't care. You were being a child about it." "Okay, entitled sister." I stopped listening to her as she continued to rant. Eventually, she stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind her. Of course, since she had no keys, she couldn't lock the doors to the house, so I had to. My mum returned home from work late that night. When she got home, this conversation ensued. She says, "What happened with your sister today?" I explained to her exactly what happened, sparing no details. She sighed. "I think you should apologize to her." "You're kidding right now." "For sleeping. She came out here to see you." And I say, "And she knew I hadn't slept in 2 days. She didn't know." "I told her before I got here." "You told her earlier before you left to work. What do you mean she didn't know?" Silence. "Well, she's your sister and you should still apologize." "Okay, Mum." The next morning, I messaged entitled sister, apologizing for sleeping while she was there. I tried calling, but it went straight to voicemail. Thinking that was the end of it, I decided to let it go. I get a phone call from Dad later on in the day, with a conversation that went pretty much the same as it did with my mum the previous night. At this point, I'm pissed. Everyone knew I hadn't slept and I needed to sleep, yet here I am, completely in the wrong. I have been gone for 4 years, and I'm being treated rather horribly by my own family. I later find out that entitled sister will not come to Thanksgiving unless I apologize for being a rude a-hole. That pushed me over the edge, and I decide that if she wants to act like a spoiled brat like she always had, then she can. I wasn't going to apologize again for sleeping. True to her word, entitled sister did not show up for Thanksgiving. The entire week, both of my parents urged me to apologize to her and be the bigger person. I told them I had already apologized and refused to do so again. I returned home this past Sunday without seeing my sister or dad. My dad lived over an hour away from my mum's house and due to unfortunate circumstances was unable to make it for Thanksgiving. I wish this had a happy ending, but it never does with my sister. Should I have handled it differently? Posted by user Midnight Ballad, titled, "Woman, do not touch my child." A few hours ago, Auntie, my family says that instead of Auntie, called my mother about something that happened today. Her pissed-off black woman voice could be heard across the room. I was curious what happened, worried something bad happened as I've never heard her so angry, and asked my mother to put her on speakerphone. The following story she told us is parallel to a situation my mother and I went through when I was very young. Here is how it began. Early this afternoon, Auntie, age 52, and her daughter, age 9, went to the store to pick up baking supplies for my cousin to make her first gingerbread house. Cousin had always wanted to make one and was inspired when I shared photos of the holiday goodies I made. I told her it's more fun to make food from scratch and they just taste better, and she wanted to give it a try. That was their plan for this weekend. Cousin and Auntie went to Dollar Tree for candy since they could get way more for way less, then their local grocery for the good brand name stuff. They had most of the ingredients at home, so they didn't need much. Being the holiday season, they were in the grocery line for quite a while. Cousin bounced with excitement, saying how she couldn't wait to get started on the gingerbread house and make it so cute. There was a white woman in line behind them. Auntie assumed 40-something whose outfit said she could buy anything at full price and still afford her bills for the month. She said with a big smile, "Your daughter has such pretty hair." One thing about the women in my family, we all have great hair because we take care of it. It's thick, healthy, and beautiful, and we take pride in it. We all stopped using relaxers before Cousin was even born, so it was 100% pure African American hair. It's a lot of work, but the payoff is worth it. Cousin loves getting her hair styled. Today's style was 2 twists over her head like a headband, butterfly clips and matching bubble balls around 4 separate, evenly parted twists with flower barrettes on the other ends. It was windy where they live, so Auntie also gelled her hair down. Auntie thanked the woman for the compliment. Cousin was shy around strangers and inched forward, feeling uneasy as the woman was not on the 6-foot marker on the floor separating them. While Auntie started loading their things onto the conveyor belt, she noticed one of Cousin's flower barrettes fell off and one of her little twists came loose. Auntie told her to pick it up. She has bad knees, as not to lose it. Cousin bent down to get it, and as soon as she stood up, the woman behind her grabs her and starts touching her hair. This total stranger put her hands on another stranger's child, especially a black woman's child. Yeah, her obituary would be in the works if it were my kid. When Auntie saw her, she hollered, "Big, get your effing hands off my child." The woman stared at her wide-eyed and didn't stop. "She's fine. Her hair is just so pretty, I couldn't resist the urge to touch it." Auntie starts taking her earrings off. Wasn't her first fight. She said, "Lady, I do not know you, and I am not above resisting the urge to touch you." She snatched the woman's hand away and threw it aside as it smacked into the conveyor belt. The woman cried out in pain while clutching her hand and yells, "What the hell is wrong with you?" Auntie tells her, "You don't put your hands on someone else's child. If I did that to your kid, you'd have my black ass arrested." The woman looks at Cousin, who is on the verge of tears, and says, "I bet your mean mummy beats you at home, doesn't she? You're probably being abused. I can take you away from that pain, baby." Cousin begins to step back from the woman, smelling the crazy on her, and this broad quickly grabs her arm by force. Cousin shrieks and Auntie backhands the woman clean across the face. The woman just gasped and stared at Auntie like she was crazy. To Auntie's credit, she was the right kind of crazy, the kind you don't fuck with when it comes to her cubs. Auntie didn't know if someone called a manager or security or if they were already coming. But they did, and the 2 security men restrained Auntie. She's no small lady. The woman immediately started sobbing and told them, "Arrest this psycho! She assaulted me when all I did was say her daughter's hair was pretty." Auntie said, "You put your hands on my baby. You're lucky I'm not whooping your ass up and down these aisles." The cashier and some onlookers vouched for her, saying she didn't know the woman who just started touching Cousin's hair for no reason. The manager told one of the security guards to stay with the woman while he, Auntie, and the other guard went to his office. Auntie told them everything that happened before they checked the CCTVs. Everything from the woman touching Cousin's hair to Auntie slapping the taste out of her mouth when she tried to grab Cousin by force. Everything Auntie told them was caught on video. The manager asked if Cousin was okay, and she said yes. She was just scared for the other woman because she thought her mom was going to, and I quote, "beat the white off that woman and curb stomp her." This made the security guy laugh. He was a black man with a daughter himself and agreed that his wife would have done the same thing. They went back to the woman and told her Auntie was acting out of self-defense for her child. The manager told her that because she grabbed the little girl by force, she was on the hook for first-degree kidnapping charges. This is when the woman started fuming and shouted, "It's not my fault this skin pigment-related slur is a horrible mother." And there it was, the infamous word that ended Paula Deen's career and made Dave Chappelle a household name. The manager, the security guards, the onlookers. Auntie saw a lot of dropped jaws and heard a lot of shocked gasps. The woman realized what she had said and sputtered, trying to save face. The manager promptly told her to shut up and asked Auntie if she wanted to press charges. Auntie said hell yeah. The security guard who waited with the woman slapped some lovely silver bracelets to go with her outfit and escorted her out the store. She was charged for the attempted kidnapping and banned from the store for the hate speech. Edit to add, I found out from Auntie that half the people there were black, including the manager. Some people clapped as the woman was escorted out. Auntie's $40 purchase was comped and they went home. No matter how sweet cousin makes her gingerbread house, I'm sure the justice she and auntie got today was even sweeter. Edit. Wow, I didn't really think this post would firework overnight. Thanks so much to everyone for the awards, sharing your own stories and giving props to my aunt. Cousin called me a few minutes ago. She showed me a picture of her gingerbread house and did a great job. It's more like a log cabin with a Kit Kat exterior and white cotton candy chimney smoke. She and her mum watch lots of home reno shows, so I get where she got her inspiration from. And to those of you who called me racist, I can see your glass house crumbling around you from those stones you're throwing. And also for those of you who don't believe my story, that sounds like a you problem. Also, I mistyped about the hate speech and corrected it. Voice texting and typing manual corrections on mobile is not advised. So some of you very rude stone throwers, you can get all the way off my back about it. Sorry for the confusion, but it was an accident I fixed. Happy holidays, smiley face. And for you guys in the comments, would you be doing the same as this lady did in this incident here? Would you start throwing around these racist slurs? I feel like they were kind of racist, I'm not gonna lie. What would you do in this situation? I probably would be like a bloody statue. I'd be like, oh my god, I cannot act here. I cannot do anything. My hands are tied. I'm gonna leave this one. This is a dumpster fire. Let me know in the comments. Our next post is by user Why Won't It Thunder? Titled, Entitled Mum Thinks She Has to Be Invited to Everything. Gets Husband to Scream at Us. So I had originally posted a version of r/am I the arsehole, but was suggested to post here as well. Sandy is my uncle's girlfriend. No one in our family but my uncle likes Sandy. Why? Well, for starters, she's still married and living with her husband and daughter. Secondly, she's a huge narcissist and throws a tantrum every time she doesn't get her way. About a month into my uncle and her dating, we were going to take family pictures, and she's there with her daughter. We asked her for a few pics with just my grandma and her kids and grandkids, but that didn't go over well at all. Sandy starts screaming that she's dating my uncle, so that means she and her daughter are family too, and deserve to be in the pictures just as much as anyone else. Sandy has even stalked my grandma, who is only 4'9" and in her late 70s. What the fuck? Back in March, when the pandemic was starting, my grandma was still living alone, so she had to do her own errands. My grandma had to go to Costco one day, and there Sandy was casually running into my grandma. Sandy was thinking about getting a Costco membership, but she doesn't like the Costco that's 30 minutes closer to her. Then, a few weeks later, she shows up at the same pharmacy that my grandma goes to because Sandy's pharmacy didn't have the medicine she needed, so they sent her to the one that was 35 minutes from her. Sandy also showed up at my grandma's bank on the exact day that my grandma decided to open savings accounts for her grandkids. Sandy asked my grandma what she was doing, and when my grandma told her, Sandy launched into a fit because, what about my daughter? She's technically your grandkid too. My uncle and her had only been dating for about 3 to 4 months at that point. Just as my grandma was about to say something, the bank security came over and asked if my grandma was okay. They knew her from decades of her banking there, as well as all of her kids and grandkids. So when my grandma said no, they immediately escorted Sandy out. Shortly after that, my grandma moved states to live with my aunt, and that's so far been the last stalking incident. On Thanksgiving, we all did a Zoom dinner instead of having a big gathering. About a half hour into the meal, my uncle's phone starts going crazy. It's Sandy. She starts demanding to know why she wasn't invited and goes into full tantrum mode. So, my uncle caves and sends her the link. As soon as she gets on, Sandy starts screaming and her daughter Amy, 12, is running around in the background, screaming and crying that it's not fair. Sandy starts calling us all selfish idiots, and then her husband starts yelling at us that we can't do that to his wife. My grandma had had enough of Sandy and scoffed at her. See? This is why nobody here likes you. This is why we do everything without you. This is why I'm so glad that you and that rabid kid of yours aren't invited to my granddaughter's wedding. No big dramatic ending. We just ended the call because everyone was super angry. We decided to do another one without my uncle this time, and that was fine. How is that not a big dramatic ending? What are you talking about? That was a big dramatic ending if everyone was super angry. I don't understand what you're talking about here, Copper. I guess, what do you guys think about this one? That was an intense story. It's not every day you just get an ending like that and they're just like, you know what? Wasn't that dramatic. It's actually not too bad if you really think about it. Tell me what you guys would do in this situation down in the comments here. I'm really curious to see what you guys would say. And our last story here today is by JavQuirod06, titled, Entitled Mother Thinks Her Kids Should Play With My $1,500 PC. More of an entitled kid story. Edit, my mum did stand up for me at the end, many comments saying she should, and she had to buy me a $50 keyboard. Those crotch goblins ain't coming back for a while since my parents are mad with them. Info. I recently bought this PC that costs about $1,500 without counting the monitors and other stuff. And I was very delicate with it. My grandma's birthday was approaching, and since my family and my grandma live in the same city, all the other family members traveled to visit. I love my causing except one group. Seriously, what the fuck are with these stupid typos? I love my causing. What? These kids are spiled. It's spiled. Their mother doesn't care about them, so they developed into bratty and annoying kids. One is about 11, the oldest, and she is the least annoying. But she doesn't care about what other people think, and always does what she wants. The middle kid is about 8, and he is a crybaby. If we don't let him see our phones or let him play with them, he goes to cry to his or my parents. And the third one, about 4 to 5, is always making fun and picking on the middle child. He also breaks many toys and is a snitch himself. On to the story. I was chilling in my house playing some Counter-Strike when I hear the door. I hoped it was the good cousin, but it was the trio. In the beginning, we were in the living room, talking and telling stories. But after a while, they went deeper in the house, my room. First, they annoyed my little bro with his Nintendo Switch. After a while though, they got bored and went into the room. The first to walk in was the small kid. He immediately sat on my vest that is next to my desk and started watching me play. He asked to play, but I said no, as it was too hard for him and he would die. Literally die. I was gonna kill that kid. Then the middle kid walked in. The old one stayed talking with the parents, and they started arguing over who was going to play first. After a couple of matches, they started saying it was their turn, and when I refused, they started picking on each other for fun. At one point, the young one punched the big one, who fell into my PC's tower and knocked it over. It was very heavy. They got scared and went to tell their parents. The PC was fine, not even a scratch. But then they made up a story about me picking on them and not letting them play, and had to let them play. The mother screamed at me in front of my parents and told me if I made her baby sad again, she would make sure my computer disappears. At one point, the small kid was playing and got so mad after dying that he punched my keyboard, knocking a piece off. This was a $30 keyboard, so I got bloody mad. And the mother told me off for being a snitch and when I told my parents. They eventually left and I now have to play with a keyboard with a key sunk lower than the rest. It's mechanical, so they are higher than normal keyboards. I told my mum to buy a lock for my room and she agreed. So next time, they ain't even coming in. Edit, Jesus, this blew up. Thanks for the awards and upvotes. No worries, Cobber. Alright, let's imagine ourselves back as kids, just whoop, 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 back in time. We're back to like 8 years old. What are you guys going to do if this happens to you in this situation? Are you going to fight the kid? Are you going to get mad with the parents? What is your response to this situation? Let's do some role play down in the comments here. Anyway, guys, I think that's where I'm going to leave today's episode. Unfortunately, I was getting really bored with how I was doing stories before, so I saw Mark Narration's channel and I'm like, hey Dad, that looks pretty cool. So if you like how I'm presenting the content now, I'm trying to be more animated and cool, I'm going to start taking out the profanity filter and swearing because fuck yeah. Let me know down in the comments. As always, I hope you guys have a good day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to today. Please tell me down in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.